So, what am I going to talk about? I guess the theme of the whole event is the experience is everything. Why is that relevant to retail, supply chain, etc.? It's relevant because these days it's not about pricing. Pricing's very, very visible. So we cannot push the prices any lower. The margins are under huge amounts of pressure. Stores are actually shrinking in size rather than increasing in size. So how do we also fight against the online threat that is facing retail? And I'll talk about online as we go through, but I'll talk about it because I don't believe it is a threat. Most retailers who have a physical presence also have an online presence. 90% of business still goes through stores. And of the rest of it, 80% is influenced in stores. So stores are still critical to the retail business. So the experience is what will allow us as retailers to differentiate ourselves from one store to another, from one channel, if you like, being online or in-store or catalog, to another. So we'll talk about channels, we'll talk about experience, and we'll talk about how do we engage better with customers. A little bit about Motorola first. If you're thinking I'm going to stand here and talk about mobile phones, I'm afraid you're in the wrong place. Motorola split into two separate companies 2 years ago. The phone business, Motorola Mobility, was then subsequently bought by Google, so that is now a Google company. So the phone business is completely gone. We are now Motorola Solutions, which is all about business to business, business to government, etc. It's about efficiency. It's about driving solutions that make a difference to those organizations. So if we look at the government side, how do we actually help governments reduce crime? How do we help governments increase local government revenues? How do we look at economies of scale in terms of fire departments, first responders, etc., to improve recovery rates, etc.? What about the enterprise side in terms of fulfillment, supply chain, improving the processes there with technology that allow us to have fewer errors, so that actually reduce costs in the long run? So looking at the end result rather than individual pieces of technology. Because at the end of the day, as businesses, you don't come to Motorola and say, what's your latest piece of kit? Your challenge is, how do I solve this problem? And you need a partner in technology to be able to do that, who can say, this is how the technology will help you work to solve some of these problems. And these examples, these figures have come from actual government organizations, actual retailers, actual logistics companies that we've worked with over the last few years. So we've got a lot of experience in that side. If I focus purely down onto the retail side of the business, Motorola is not an easy company to talk about. Why do I say that? The reality is we cover so many solutions across so many different areas of your business that it's not as if we can have a 10-minute conversation and you will understand our product, because there isn't a single product. There are solutions across the whole retail business, whether it's helping you to personalize the shopping experience, to deliver better experiences in store or even online for your customers, whether it's guest Wi-Fi for customers, and even the challenges around guest Wi-Fi, should we, shouldn't we? Do customers really want guest Wi-Fi when they come into our store? We can look at what other retailers have done and the experiences that they've had. So the strength of being a global organization allows us to let you know what other retailers are doing, what the market is doing as a whole, and we do a lot of research around that. Whether it's about the buying experience, the transactions, whether RFID is involved. All of these technologies are things where Motorola can help in either a consultancy basis or delivery of the actual physical technology and putting that technology in. So we'll cover some of these points as we go through. I'll bring the whole slide up on this one. We do, as I mentioned, we do a lot of research. I just picked out, rather than lots and lots of slides on research, which will bore the hell out of you, I picked on one slide and I brought a few bits of data together that cover 3 different angles. First of all, 89% of retailers, when questioned, are unable to link the online experience with what happens in store. Now that's a challenge. It's a challenge because most of us now, before we buy anything, we do some research online first. We may not go to your website, but we'll go to various different websites. The real challenge, though, is if I've been on your website and then come into your store, I've already done some research on your products. So first of all, I'm already knowledgeable. But secondly, I've been on your site. So from a customer point of view, I expect you to know, particularly if I'm a member of your loyalty program, that you should know that I've already done that search. I've done the research. I've narrowed my product selection down to this or this. So now help me make the final decision. Don't make me go back to the start again. And even worse, don't allow me as a customer to actually have more knowledge about your products than your staff have. That's a real challenge. So how do we solve some of those things? And we know 95% figure there, and that's probably out of date now really, because that talks about by 2015, 95% of phones sold in America will be smartphones. And I think that's going to be out of date. It's going to be more than that, and it's going to be sooner than that. What impact does that mean? It means that we're all walking around with bits of technology which are effectively mobile computers with scanners on them. We call them cameras, but they can scan barcodes. I can go into a shop, I can scan a barcode, I can find out the information about that product, and you know the worst thing? I can find out that it is in stock and cheaper on Amazon or somewhere else. That's a real threat of online sales. The threat there, though, can be dealt with, because if we know that that's happening, and if we know that customers are doing that, then why don't we make our own application for InStore? Why don't we give our customers the opportunity to use a shopping app in our store that we control, that we give them information, that we send them promotional coupons, and that they're getting a better experience because we've taken control over that. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of retailers are looking at guest Wi-Fi, so that they can deliver their own application, which is linked into the digital loyalty program. So suddenly I'm getting a much better picture, much better profile of the customers coming into my store. What are they doing when they're in the store? How long do they spend in store? What direction do they go in? What do they scan? What other websites do they go to when they're in store? Are they iPhone users or are they Android users? All of that information is now available to you through the technology of Wi-Fi. So those sorts of things are there. Then lastly on this slide, looking at it from a member of staff point of view, and we do talk to a lot of store managers and staff members, because actually they are critical to understanding how the retail business is really working. Head office thinks one thing, you get into an actual store, you see how it really happens. And I've done a lot of store tours with people from head office, and their eyes are opened the more tours that they do. 75% of retail associates, an American word for staff, report providing a better store experience, or say they would be able to provide a better store experience if they had a piece of technology that actually gave them access to some of the information they know is available. Is the product in stock? Does it come in any other colours? If it's not in stock, how soon is it coming in? Where else is it available in our store network? So that basic type of information, if I had access to that, I could deliver a better service to my customers and they wouldn't walk out of the door and go somewhere else. And there's a lot of trends happening. I'll skip straight to the sort of summary bit of this and run through some of these trends. We've talked about smart devices. We've all got smart devices now, probably most of us 2 or 3. At a recent Google conference, it was actually last year, they were in a hotel, probably not too dissimilar to this, but slightly bigger. The hotel had 2,000 rooms, 2,000 developers there, but at one point in time, there were 8,000 devices connected to the Wi-Fi network. So we're all carrying multiple devices, probably 2 phones, an iPad, and a laptop. There's 4 straight away. And a Kindle and maybe other devices. We're even getting smart watches now. So all of these things are happening and driving the demand for wireless information, wireless networks. And people are thriving, your customers are thriving on wireless data. They're constantly on the phones wanting to find out more information. And yet, what happens with our staff? Our staff use these sorts of things at home, and as soon as they get to the store, we say, oh, put that in your locker, and we're not going to give you any technology. Or we'll give you some technology, but it's these larger, heavier items with buttons on them, and you're going to count some inventory, or you're going to scan some barcodes and do some pricing. We've got to go further than that to deliver better experiences for customers. A couple of other things on here, I won't go through all of them. Customers have options, they've always had options, but now, because I can scan a barcode and find out that that product is cheaper and available either at Tesco's or at Amazon or somewhere else, those options are visible to me, and that's the big threat. The threat is if it's visible to me in somebody else's site, then I will go somewhere else because it's now easy for me to do so. If it's Amazon, I can now just press that screen, one click, and I've bought it somewhere else and it's being delivered to me tomorrow or later in the week. That's the real threat. How do we deal with that? Social networks, yes, they're extremely important. When I started talking about social networks 7 or 8 years ago, it was more about you need a presence. You need to have a Facebook page. You need to start to understand how social networks work and get engaged there, get lots of likes and fans on your networks. Now, it goes even further than that, and people like Oracle, etc., have realized this. So they've bought companies recently that, first of all, allow you to see what the feeling is about your company on the social networks. Are people positive about your business or negative on Facebook and MySpace, etc., and even Instagram, which seems to be growing rapidly? So are people saying good things about you? And if they're saying bad things about you, how do you react to that? So the couple of companies that Oracle bought, one of them looks at that sentiment, and then the other company that they bought actually gives you the social network marketing engine that allows you to respond to that and say, I'm sorry you had a bad experience at that particular store. We'll do something about it. We'll do better next time. Here's a coupon code, etc. So do something about it. And they can go so far as to make that look as though it's come from the store manager, or even give the power down to the local store manager to say, you had a bad experience at my store, come and see me next time and we'll give you 10% off. Repeat visits, and it also makes me as a customer think, okay, I know you didn't do well last time, but you've addressed that, or at least you've recognized that. So lots of things changing. The last bit on here, omnichannel shopping, I'll cover that. I don't like the term, and in fact, as a company and as an organization, we are steering away from that term, which is strange because it's only really been around for the last 2 years, but that's the pace of change that we're having within the retail space now. The reason I don't like it, omnichannel looks at it from a retail organization point of view, and it drives us to set up a website, a mobile site, an application, a digital loyalty site, optimize the stores, and put somebody in charge of each one of those, which is great, which means we've covered all of those channels. The reality is the customer doesn't look at it like that. When was the last time you went shopping and thought, which channel should I use? And how many of us stick to one channel? I'll try and summarize it in one slide. Here's a typical shopping experience these days. First of all, this person has decided they want to do a bit of identification, look at various different products. They're looking at possibly some research, looking to buy a product. And so they do that on the website. They're out and they suddenly think, oh, I was looking at that. Let me narrow that down. They're on their phone. So that spare minute at work and they look on their phone. They then starting to narrow down that process. Let's see what other people think about that. Let's see what the Facebook page is saying. Let's see how many likes that particular product has got. So they're on Facebook. They then may go to a physical store and actually start to talk to a member of staff to try and narrow down that choice. Is this the right product for me? Will it fit? What does it actually look like? The real benefits of a store, the ability to use your all 5 senses and actually talk to a person as well. Let's leverage that. And then they may still leave that store and then go and buy it off a website because their perception is it's going to be cheaper on the website. And by the way, that's not only perception. If you think about things in an omni-channel way, and we see a lot of retailers are still doing this, they say, well, I should be able to charge more if they're buying it in a store. Why? Well, because the store costs me more money to run. Does your customer care if he can go away and buy it off your website for a cheaper price? We've got a lot of retailers still, and you may be some of them, who have different pricing in their stores to their website. But your customers then, you're driving them to your own website or you're driving them to somebody else's websites. We've got to make this consistent. We've got to start looking at it from a customer point of view. So omnichannel needs to be actually put to one side, and we need to start turning it on its head and looking at it from a customer-centric point of view. What does the customer see us as? A whole business. They look at your brand. Your goal is to make them loyal to your brand, not to a store, not to your website, not to your mobile app. Those should be part of the fascia of your brand. So, omnichannel, no. Customer-centric, yes. So, we're looking at how do we help retailers connect better with shoppers across all of the different channels. And part of that is, you've seen a bit of this already, understanding how do shoppers actually buy? What are the processes that they go through? This will differ depending upon the type of product that they're buying. So if I'm going into a supermarket and I just want a pint of milk because we've run out of milk, then I'm not going to spend a lot of time working out exactly which store I go to, discriminating between different types of products, etc. I already know I'm going to pass this particular supermarket on the way home. I already know we use semi-skimmed milk, so I know where that is in the store, etc. So I still do these processes, but I do them very quickly. Actually, what's more important in that type of shopping experience is the transaction. Because if I'm just buying a pint of milk, I don't want to walk into the store, look around, and there's a queue of 5 people at the checkout. I want to be in and out. So that's when things like self-checkout really come into the fore. But if I'm going to that same supermarket the following day and spending €100 on a shop, then I'm going to be doing a lot more of the other elements. I'm going to have a lot more time in the store. I'm also going to have time to receive more in terms of promotional material. So it's about understanding how the shoppers shop, depending upon the product and depending on the type of experience they're having. So a few scenarios that we can run through. First of all, at different stages. Typical customer walks into a store. Even if they're a member of the loyalty program, we generally do not know. We haven't got a clue, because most loyalty schemes are about giving us points when we've actually purchased something. But that doesn't really determine loyalty. Loyalty is more about how often do I come back? How often do I think about your store first and give you the option? So we take loyalty and let's think about it in a different way. Let's think about loyalty and think about actually as soon as that customer is outside our store or walking into our store, let's find a way to recognize them. Let's find a way to greet them. Let's find a way to say, Mark, welcome back. By the way, the wine you like, we're doing on special offer at the moment. Or in fact, the next grade up of wine, we're doing 6 bottles for the price of 5. So take away a whole case. Upsell, cross-sell, from the moment I walk into the store with relevant and appropriate coupons or messages, promotions that are right for me at that point in time. So that milk shop, I don't want a promotion, I don't want a coupon, because I'm only buying a bottle of milk, so I'm not even going to pull out my phone. But the next day when I'm spending a lot of money and taking a trolley shop, that is when I'm interested, and if I've been in the store for more than 3 or 4 minutes, fine, send me some promotions. How do we recognize you? Well, first of all, Wi-Fi is key here, and I think Wi-Fi is now becoming fundamental to retail businesses. Whether you think people spend a long time in your store or not actually doesn't matter. It's more about engaging with the customer, knowing who's come in, because it's good to know how often they've come in and bought, how often they've come in and not bought, and that can all be part of the loyalty program. So we have tools and solutions that allow you to do that, to recognize your customers, specifically if they're part of the loyalty program. And even if they're not, the guest Wi-Fi will allow you to see how many iPhones have walked in and whether or not that MAC address has been in 2 or 3 times in the last month, because then you can start to focus on some of those customers a bit more. So loyalty looked at in a very different way. The tale of the lost sale. We were approached by a retailer in the States. It was a DIY retailer, and they were finding that actually 1 in 3 of their customers that came through the doors bought something. So the converse to that is two in three came in, walked around the store, went out without anything in their hands. Now, I don't know about you, but I tend not to go into a DIY store for fun. I've got something in my mind that I'm thinking about buying. So if we can improve that ratio, we can have a significant impact on the sales and the performance of those stores. But why were they walking out? So we did a research study with the people that were walking out of those stores. And I guess some of the key figures here are the ones on the right. 44% of those people that were walking out said they would be more likely to buy if a member of staff was able to actually show them where a product was. So what's that saying? Our signage is wrong, the ability for customers to find products is wrong, customers just don't know where products are in a DIY store. So that means we can start looking at solutions to that. Maps at the start of the store, shopping apps that allow them to type in a product and it tells them exactly where to go based upon knowing the planogram of the store. So we're seeing a lot more of that these days. 68% said they were more likely to buy if a product that was out of stock had been offered to be shipped to them, delivered to them. Whether they have it delivered to them to their home or delivered to the store for pickup later in the week, those are the options we need to talk about. So first of all, recognizing that the product is out of stock, members of staff able to help, and you're probably suffering the same problem that retailers around the world, that we've cut down the numbers of staff so much that every single member of staff is busy. So when a customer looks for a member of staff to help, members of staff are head down because they're busy doing operational tasks. So then we start to think about how can we make their operational tasks quicker to free up their time to give them the opportunity to talk to customers. And then what are the questions that the customers are asking? How much is it? Is it in stock? Does it come in any other sizes or colors? There's only a few basic questions most customers ask. So we work with retailers to provide that level of technology and that level of information and insight. And it's not about an individual device. It's not about having necessarily a tablet. It's not about having iPads. It's not about having handheld computers. Actually, the right device is what is right for your staff in the types of engagements they have with customers and the rest of the jobs that they have to do. And what we're seeing for the future is that actually it will be multiple devices in a store. Your store managers will have one device because we want them to stay on the shop floor. We don't want them sitting in the office because they're having to look at their daily sales figures, what's being delivered, what's not being delivered, all the emails that they need to look at. Actually, we want the managers walking around the store. We want them there seeing what's happening and be able to answer customer and staff questions. So the managers need some sort of tablet or bigger device. The staff, if they're doing stock management and inventory, they need something that's going to be able to scan as well. But we still want them to be able to answer customer questions easily and quickly in a format that's relevant to them. So they've got all these touch screens at home on their phone, and yet we give them something that's not a touch screen and they have to press lots of buttons. Let's give them access to better technology and keep them informed. And we're also seeing, as I mentioned before, a huge growth in in-store apps. So here's just 4 examples. That's Home Depot in the States. This one's Marks and Spencer's in the UK. The middle one is Albert Heijn in Holland, so a grocery store. And then on the right-hand side, it's Carrefour. That one's Carrefour in Belgium. These are in-store mobile apps. So a lot of us have got mobile apps for retail, but most of those have been designed for me to use as a customer when I'm out and about. These are being designed to use in-store. So they recognize that I'm in this particular store. They then configure my shopping list and wish list based upon the planogram of this store, any special offers that this store has, any differential pricing, etc. And maybe even what's actually in stock in this store relevant to that. So the Appy one from Albert Heijn, very good at that. If I walk in and it's on my shopping list and it's not in stock in that store, it automatically says it's not in stock and here's an alternative. So the sort of things that are happening on home delivery can be done in store. Why not? That data is available. And even though I'm not really talking about devices specifically, we worked with a number of retailers, large UK grocer in particular, to say, well, if your staff need a device, what do they need it to do? They need it to answer some basic questions. They need to be able to scan barcodes. They need to be able to communicate with each other, probably by voice rather than texting. So how can we integrate all of that into a device? Oh, and by the way, make it very cheap. So not like the current technologies. And I don't want them using a phone because I don't want them texting their friends and looking as though they're texting, because that means that customers think they're not doing their job. So can we create that type of device? And it took us about 2.5 years to go through lots of processes. But last year we launched this device, which is called the Smart Badge. A lot of my colleagues are wearing them, and they're available outside to look at. It's an e-ink screen. It's Wi-Fi based. It's browser based. It uses voice over IP, so you can have voice communication between staff on various different channels. So I can set up a security channel, a management channel, a staff on dairy channel, etc. So how do I communicate with that? It's got a scanner built in, as you can see as well, and it's touch screen. And it can also link to a solution we have called Mobile Workforce Manager, which allows me now to say, what are all the tasks I need my staff to do in a store? Maybe there's a product recall, urgent compliance issue. How do I get that done in store? Well, what's my current process? My current process is to phone or send a fax down to the store to say, these items need to be taken off the shelf as soon as you can, and give us a call or send us a fax back when you've done it. And I have very little visibility from a head office perspective when that's actually been done. If I take a device like this, I can send that product recall down even to an individual member of staff, to Adam, as it says on this slide. Adam then clicks the screen, because it's a touch screen, to say, yep, I've accepted that task. He then scans the first of the products to check that that's the right product to take off the shelf, gets a confirmation back. Now he takes it off the shelf, clicks complete on his screen. Now that message digitally has gone straight back to head office to say that that particular store has had those products taken off. We're now compliant, there's an audit trail, and we even know that it was Adam that took them off the shelves at 10:10 in the morning. Much better audit trail for a low price in a device that does lots of different things. So it's about connecting staff and giving them the tools to do their job better. We're also seeing a huge growth in RFID. Outside in the Retail Experience Centre, you'll see a number of different iterations of that. Main use, inventory management, that's really where you get the return on investment. The prices of tags and devices now are low enough to make that return on investment less than a year in most cases. But we're also seeing companies like Burberry in the UK, in their flagship stores, using RFID to enhance the experience of customers. For example, if I take a jacket into the changing rooms at the Burberry store in London, the changing room knows what I've walked in with. And suddenly, the TV screen next to the mirror in the changing room now suddenly shows my jacket, but on a model with the right belt, trousers, shirt, etc. Apparently that Burberry do all of those things. Oh, it looks good in all of those things, great, I'll buy something else to make it go with that. If I have a look at, not that I look at handbags that often, but if I have a look at a handbag at the Burberry store, it can be put just on a unit like this, and as the member of staff is talking me through this handbag, the screen behind it again now shows this handbag being hand-stitched in their factory. And then you see a monogram being put onto that handbag, because they then can talk about how that handbag can be customized and personalized for you. So increasing the level of, I guess, service that Burberry are able to do for their customers and that experience. And then we can look at making sure that transaction process works as well. And it's not just about the checkouts. Transactions, is all about the whole flow through the retail business. How do I improve that? And actually part of that might be to allow customers to use their own phones to scan barcodes as they go around the shop. So if I'm buying 4 or 5 items, I might use my own phone. If I'm buying 40 or 50 items, don't particularly want to tie up my phone, use my battery for that. But as you'll see outside, you might use a company-owned device, a self-scanning system, and still get promotions on that self-scanning system. It adds up all the prices for you. And even better, if my shopping list from here can transfer to that device, then I've got all my shopping list on that device, and I can walk around the store, do my scanning, and I don't have to wait in line because all my products have already been scanned. So all of that can be demonstrated to you outside. So one retailer that's putting a lot of this together is Tesco. Just one example, there's a lot of great retail examples out there, but I just pulled this together from what Tesco are looking at in terms of the technology that they are using to enhance the customer experience. So things like the self-scanning, things like using mobile apps as we've got in the middle to allow people to shop or to find out nutritional information about products. If I have an allergy, I want to make sure that the product I'm buying doesn't affect my allergy adversely. So why not give me an app like Albert Heijn do, that actually I scan a product and it comes up red because I can't buy that, I can't use that, it's got nuts in it, for example. So those sort of customer apps, and we're seeing a lot of this sort of thing, like we've got down here as well, interactive touch screens. So kiosks have really changed, digital signage has really changed. It's now about interaction. It's about allowing me to find out more information about products. This example here, proper, huge, big touch screens that actually work like big iPads that allow the customers to see product information. And in that example, in Gatwick Airport, it allows me to go into Gatwick Airport, big screen like that. There's no Tesco store. That is the Tesco store. I can look at that, I can scan products, I can make my order before I go on holiday and have it delivered to me, or click and collect it from their store when I return. So that I've always got everything ordered, my milk and bread are actually ready for me when I return from holiday. So smart thinking from retailers. So lots of things happening, even things like these little kiosk screens. This is in Tesco's in Watford, the new store they've just opened, about custom cakes. So things that you'd normally go to a small boutique store for, now being done by Tesco. So in summary, I know we're pushed for time. Motorola as an organisation looks at retailing in 3 different ways. First of all, how can we help you connect with shoppers? Increase those experiences. Well, we have to look back and what are the experiences that your shoppers want? What do they expect from you? And how can we improve on those and deliver those processes? What about your staff? What sort of things that they do? How do they fit in? If we can make them more productive, what technology do they currently use? What tasks are they doing? What can we gather from that? And if we can make them more productive and more efficient, actually, we free up their time to deal with customers more and improve the customer experience. Because the key area of customer experience is direct contact with staff, which is something we're lacking in most environments. And then to surround that, empowering IT. How do we make sure that IT as a whole is more efficient? How do we have the right wireless infrastructure so that we're getting real-time data back to head office? So that if we're using RFID, everything's tagged. Is it tagged in store or at the warehouse or actually back at the manufacturing point, and looking at those end-to-end processes. So making sure IT focuses on being able to run the business, but actually managing of these items can be done outsourced to other businesses. So there's lots of options there. So lots of things to see and do in the Retail Experience Centre, which I know you'll be doing later. So I hope you enjoy that tour. And with that, thanks very much.